kind of going back and tigging those up to have a nice sturdy perimeter for working the center of it, so that it can get nice and straight before going to put it back on the structure. All right, so I have the vast majority of all of the cracks welded up on this Chevy Decklid skin now. There's a little bit of fine tuning needs to go on, kind of all over the place, just some little minor stuff. But before I go and do any of that, I want the whole skin to be nice and rigid all the way around before I go fine tuning. So I'm putting in our hem seams here on this lower patch where I had to replace this whole strip here, and you can see the weld. So what I did is I marked out my line with a scribe, and these ones are highlighted with a Sharpie a little bit just because they were tough to see in the bead roller, because I set the edge on these side ones with the bead roller. And on this back one, I have a piece of 1/8" plate that I just kind of bent up in a wheel and over my knee, nothing too special, just to get the shape around the right area. Have it clamped down with this edge on my line that I want, and I'm just supporting it behind with a dolly so it doesn't move, and I'm slowly hammering over the edge. Alright, so we have the back end of the Chevy here, working on the Decklid structure and installing and getting the latch and latch catch all marked in and welded in and aligned. Have a couple of rubbers in the rails to hold the structure up kind of where it'll be. But as you can see, this panel that I put in that did not have a hole here now has a hole and has part of, or well, has all of it in there, but I have to repair the pocket before I go to weld it in there. Prior there was some eaten up bits of the lip, so I had to cut that off, and I'll have to make a new one real quick, weld it in. It'll be quick and easy, and then this will get plug welded down, and the Decklid will be ready to shut and lock. So I'll be able to have it in place to do all necessary fine tuning and whatnot. So that's where we're at. Okay, so last time we left off, I had just gotten this latch welded, or the latch receiver pocket welded in. As you can see now, it's a little bit more complete than it was. So got it in there and welded, started fitting the structure to the Decklid up, ended up having to move the back side of the pocket out a bit, just the way things go. So now it latches real well, and then once I got it latching, if I didn't have these magnets in the way, it could shut all the way. But I went and around the corner or the edges and fine-tuned the lip so that it would be even with the quarters, this rear panel and the upper rear panel. And since I don't have a skin on the structure, if it lines up all the way around, when the skin goes on, it'll all drop uniformly a 1/16 or so and be lined up. So now that I have all the edges good, latch in working order, hinges are hinges, I'm going back through with this patch that I made for this lower section of the structure, in the very early stages of cutting in and getting ready to weld. So you can see here the problem we're having. We want that to be nice and flat, and this piece that I have made is nice and flat, and that's what we're working with. So there's a pretty good dip there. So I'll get that cut out and welded in, and ideally there will be no hammer and dolly work after it, but inevitably there will be a little at the least. So that's where we're going. Alright, since the last time we videoed, I have trimmed up this lip a little bit more to fit my chest piece up a little bit better. Made my cuts a touch longer, which that side's welded up now so you can't see it, but over here you can see. Originally it was kind of in this area, but I brought it out so I could get it nice and smooth and bring every area up that I wanted to. And ideally, in an ideal world, but gas just hit $4, so do with that what you will. I would have welded this all at one time, but it's starting to walk around on me a little bit, so I'm doing it as much as I can, weld finishing, hammer and dollying it nice and smooth, and then continuing on. What else? Oh, I have set up just some simple little spacers to lay my patch panel onto, just for adjustment and making sure everything fits. It's just 2 paint sticks taped together and enough tape wrapped around it to be the gap that we want. And that is all of the new stuff since last time. Okay, so you're catching me in the middle of tacking in our rail, or our patch here, for the Decklid skin structure, or the Decklid structure. So what I did was I matched up, or fit up the patch with Clecos, which are what these little 1/8" holes here are. So what they do is they just click in. There's a special tool, kind of pliers. They click in, kind of spring loaded, and they hold 2 pieces of metal together. So there was a corresponding hole for each one of these on the part that we were replacing, or are replacing. So that allowed me to get it all fit up, hammer and dolly a little bit, just to kind of rough it in, get our spacing down here right, so all the blocks are nice and, you know, firm, but not too firm, so that we have a good gap. And then I took my scribe and I just ran down the edge of our patch here to show where I needed to cut. Took a bulk cut, went back, did a little fine-tuned cut, filed a little bit here and there. Now we have a nice butt joint. Got a little wild over here, but that shouldn't be an issue. So right now I'm just tacking it in, just here and there. There's no set distance, just wherever I feel necessary. And then once I have it all tacked in, I will hammer and dolly the tacks if needed, fine-tune any unevenness vertically, and then attempt to weld all the way across in one match, or one go. Alrighty, so last time we left off, I had this patch tacked in, and this morning I went ahead and welded all the way across. I left out the corners because there's going to be a little bit more fill there, as you can see, some gapping. But all this went super smooth. There's one little spot here where it got a little wonky, but if, you know, one little spot's the only problem, that's pretty good. So I have it ground down for the most part, probably 90%. Leave a little bit of thickness for hammering, just to get the metal perfectly aligned after any type of warping. So that's all I'm doing right now, is taking this little 1/2" radius die and hammering dollying this all pretty smooth, and get that seam perfectly leveled out again. Alrighty, so here today, I believe we are just around the corner to getting this Decklid skin and the structure married back together. So I have our patch here welded in all the way across, filled in on the sides, ground down, dollied out. It'll probably take a little bit of leading on the inside just to make it nice and smooth, to make it pretty. The only thing I have left, as you can see on the edge here, is to weld up Cleco holes. And so those are just the spring-loaded alignment tools I was talking about the other day. So I just have to weld those up. Not a whole lot of, nothing fancy there. And then we'll have to go on the inside, or actually the inside of the skin, and spray some undercoating, and then get some primer on these. Obviously clean the structure up. Don't want any of that there. Clean it up, get it in primer. And then they should be ready to go back together, and the deck lid and the rear portion of the car regarding the deck lid should all be good.